more minutes for everyone to get here. Hey, Fiona. How are you guys doing? Hey, Carrie. Hi, Beth. Stomach, spleen, 7 to 11. Yeah, it's interesting. While we're waiting for the people, I was looking into some of that stuff the other day too. Where's the book? And I was laughing because I got this whole download about, you know, I knew that there was going to be a signature program, and I knew it was going to be called the Philosopher's Stone, and, you know, with elemental emotional resonance pairing. And I was like, no, so I'm just like, okay, I'm just waiting for, you know, whatever the program is to drop in. And then I was told the name would be the Philosopher's Stone, and I was like, perfect, of course that's the name, like that's perfect. And because the Philosopher's Stone is, the symbol of the Philosopher's Stone is all of the elements together, right? So that's the tattoo that Michelle and I have. That symbol represents all of the elements. All the elements are represented there. So I was like, okay, of course it's gonna be called the Philosopher's Stone, great. And then that was it, like nothing for like another month. And I just like every day was like, okay, I'm waiting for the program to drop in. I'm waiting for the program to drop in. So I was in the shower, and as I always am, right? I was in the shower and it just like downloaded through early this week. And I came out and was like writing everything down. I was like, oh my gosh, like writing it all down. And I opened this book, Nourishing Destiny, because I wanted to look at something, and it opened to the Chinese clock page. And on the Chinese clock page, I looked and I'm like, okay, so what is it right now? And I'm like, it was like, I think 12:50, I was in the shower from like 12:30 to 12:50. And I was like, of course, it's the heart That was the time of the heart, and that was the emperor. So the emperor coordinates the whole. And I was like, of course. And so then I got out and like flushed it all out from 1 to 3, which was this time of the small intestine, which sorts the pure from the impure. And I was like, of course. So right now we are in the time of the spleen. Well, depending upon where you are in the world. I'm in the time of the spleen right now. So I'm just, and it's distributing nourishment. So I'm distributing nourishment to you guys through this clearing. I love the Chinese clock. Yeah, super interesting. I'm a, typically a 3 to 5 a.m. waker, which I think has a lot to do with my constitutional factor, because 3 to 5 a.m. is the time of the lung. Which is the dominant organ in metal, and it's about connecting to essence and receptivity. So I'm always waking up from 3 to 5. The other time that I tend to wake is 1 to 3, and that's the time of the liver. So that's a wood thing, and that's around like making plans. So I tend to wake, if I'm gonna wake up, it's between those two times, but it's almost always like 3:33 or 4:44. Like that's when I wake up all the time, all the time, all the time, all the time. Okay, well, oh, and I totally slept in today, which was crazy because I was gonna get up at 6 and like do my morning practices, and my alarm went off, and then I don't know what happened. The next thing I knew, it was 8 o'clock, and I was like, whoa, I guess I needed some sleep. I did take some melatonin last night, so maybe that was the cause. Maybe. Okay, so are you guys excited for this metal clear? I'm so excited for it. Obviously, I love metal. So I'm really excited to be here. Ooh, we're doing the card thing, huh? So let's pull a metal card. Except these ones. These are, so metal, if you have a deck that is an element deck, right? It's gonna be the spirit cards is what element is going to be. The Poe is all about the spirit. Actually had a session with Michelle yesterday on the Poe. Fully getting the Poe tattooed on my body. Fully getting the Poe tattooed on my body. I love these cards so much. I've like gone through almost the whole deck and there's been no spirit cards so far. How funny is that? The first card I pulled out though is the Sea Serpent. That happens to be an Ouroboros. The second card I pulled out was Phoenix. How funny is that? Of course. And then there's Dragon. Golden Egg. All the spirit cards were right together and I didn't even do that on purpose. The Cosmic Egg. The Black Egg. There's a lot of eggs in here. I've never even pulled the Unicorn. Okay, I'm just gonna do one more pass through, make sure I got them all. So tapping into the metal element, the spirit element. Tapping in for this collective, this container, Inner Alchemy. Look how awesome the cover of this card deck is. It's all hologram and it has a giant dragon eye on it. I love it. Phoenix is the card. Freedom from suffering and past karma and reincarnation. The Phoenix represents the transformation of our past. It doesn't mean running from it, denying it, or burning bridges with rage. The Phoenix employs an advanced technique described in yoga as the burning of impurities through practice and dedication. Tapas. The essence of the Phoenix is within us when we realize we have been suffering too long and something must change. We take a stand and decide to live consciously instead of being driven by the unconscious mind and its long list of fears and aversions. At that very moment, the spark of the Phoenix is lit, and the great bird helps us burn through our baggage. We no longer run from who we are, what has happened to us, or what we have done. The stuckness and dead weight fall into the ashes, and a lightness and clarity emerge. As the stagnancy continues to smolder, the Phoenix lifts our spirits up, and we begin to recognize ourselves again. We may catch a glimmer in our eye that wasn't there before. Look closely. It's a sign that the fire of transformation is upon your wings. So the Phoenix is connected to the first chakra, which I find really fascinating, right? Because we're the fire controls metal in the creation and destruction cycle. So fire controls metal. And this card in particular, this Phoenix card, is quite fiery in nature as well, right? And it's also, and fire is at the root chakra, and this one is, this Phoenix card is associated with the first chakra as well. So the ancient yogis believe that our heaviest karmas reside in the first chakra. This earthen center is also called Muladhara, or our root. The ascent of the Phoenix begins here, and as the entanglement of karmas is slowly burned, it rises from the ash towards the navel center. Again and again, it makes this journey from first to third chakra, purifying our essence, freeing us from the past. So, as you know, if obviously, well, hopefully all of you have watched Michelle's session on metal element. But the metal element is quite earthy in nature, and one of the things that we were talking about yesterday that I really loved, that I wasn't aware of before my session with Michelle yesterday, was that whereas the other elements ascend to the heavens when they leave this plane, the metal element goes back into the earth. And so, you know, the metal element is that primal animal nature. It is that, like, very much that, it is very earthy. It is very embodied in this planet that we currently reside on. So I love the Phoenix for this. I love, like, all the I love the symbolism in that card. I love some of the things that it said in the book. So as we're moving through this clearing today, it may be Phoenix that you resonate with. That's a touchstone for you. You know, as we move through the clearing today, and then also into going into the week as you're integrating the clearing. Okay, so now I'm going to move to the spirit. Points, which I believe is called Throne in this deck. Yeah, it's called Throne. The Throne in this deck. Okay, so I'm just gonna count how many there are, and then I'm gonna 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 22 in this book. Interesting. Okay, so the Warrior is the card. That's a sword and those ram's horns. Pulling the warrior card indicates a need for strong fire energy and internal power. Another fire association here, right? The warrior is a call to action as opposed to just a state of mind. It asks you to examine not just the oppressive people in your life, but also the larger systems within the world, and then get to work. The warrior is not about complacency. In identifying where you need to stand up more, you may make those around you feel uncomfortable and defensive, but you must continue forward. So I love this because for a couple of reasons. One, obviously, the Poe is absolutely about an integration of the body and the spirit. So I love that, like, call to action as opposed to just a state of mind. The other thing is that metal CF people tend to be very, very straight shooters. And that is because in their integrity, they literally can't be anything but exactly who they are. One of the things I love that Michelle and I were talking about in our session that we had yesterday is that metal constitutional factor people really exist within both worlds. They exist within both the dark and the light, within the shadow and the sun. And as a result of that, it can be quite unsettling for people because they don't have a representative. So they don't have a veil, right? The veil doesn't exist with them. And so whereas with most other constitutional factors, they're presenting a version of themselves to you when you meet them. In its integrity, metal doesn't have the ability to do that. So it's just going to be who it is. And so, you know, in many instances, who that is a warrior, right? And being fully in your integrity, in your metal, would mean that you were not being complacent in any way. So the warrior can have a cutting message. It is saying, I see what you are doing, but what else can you do? Warrior sacrifices parts of themselves for humanity at large. The balanced warrior fights to create positive change, but may go about it in questionable ways. They are strong and resilient and do not have fear when they go up against oppressors. When the warrior is imbalanced, they can be very inflammatory and hyper-aggressive. They can push those away that may be of use to them by easily bypass things that are good for them. They don't understand the concept of pick your battles and react with an equal intensity no matter how big or small the issue is. So that is the other card. So you may be resonating with the warrior energy of this. With both of these cards, there's definitely a theme of like burning away that which no longer serves, which is exactly what we do in these clearing processes, right? So, yeah, I'm excited to move into this. I'm just gonna write, we've got the Phoenix, and we've got the Warrior. Okay, so with that, go ahead and get yourself into a comfortable place where you're able to do a small meditation and get yourself centered and grounded to move into this clearing. Sitting up or laying down, it doesn't really matter, whatever's most comfortable for you. And I'm just gonna put this stuff away because it's covering all my other papers that I need. Okay. And just taking a few deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. Finding a pace that's comfortable for you. Allowing your breathing and your breath to be rhythmic. And now pulling your energy back from anywhere it may have wandered to today. Pulling all of your energy back inside your auric field, inside your physical body. And at the same time that you're pulling your energy back in, pushing out and removing anything from your auric field and from your physical body that energetically is not yours and does not belong to you. Ultimately resting and existing in a state of purity that is your energy and your energy alone. And now tapping into how you are feeling, asking yourself in this moment, how do I feel? Tapping into your own energy from a place of non-judgment and observation, just witnessing yourself in the feeling that you're having in this moment. And now setting an intention for this clearing today to clear the metal element. Setting the intention that you clear anything and everything that's no longer serving your highest and best good, as well as anything and everything that is blocking or inhibiting you from achieving your infinite potential. Asking that the metal element be cleared completely today. And now calling upon a visualization of the metal element. Whatever that means, feels, looks like for you. Whether it's the alchemical symbol or one of the alchemical symbol for one of the metals, a symbol of some kind, a color. Colors in the metal palette are grays, golds, coppers. Calling upon a color and some kind of visual symbol or representation of the metal element. And beginning to fill your energetic and auric field with that symbol and with that color. Allowing the color to wash over you from the top of your head, all the way down your torso, down your arms, through your stomach and your root, down your legs. Filling your field, your auric field, with the color and the symbol of the metal element. Really tapping into all of the parts of you where the metal element resides. Calling upon all your 5 bodies now, activating them with the metal element, asking them to show up and be present and accounted for in this clearing today. Your spiritual body, your emotional body, your energetic body, your physical body, and your mental body. Calling upon the parts of you that crave quality and purity. The parts of you that question if you're really okay. Parts of you that seek meaning, the parts of you that seek inspiration, the parts of you seeking constant connection to the world, the parts of you that sometimes show up judging and hardened and unyielding, and the parts of you that sink sometimes into grief. The parts of you that are purpose-driven and seeking. The parts of you where your perfectionism exists. The parts of you that sometimes feel overwhelmed. The parts of you that can be overly moved. Your internal seeker. The parts of you that long to feel complete. And as we get ready to move into this clearing, ask yourself if these statements resonate with you. What will give my life meaning? Am I really okay? What do I need to be complete? How can I find inspiration and meaning? How can I connect to the world? Taking a few more deep breaths, allowing all that represents the metal element to fully permeate your being. And when you are ready, come back to this time, this space. Bring your presence back into this clearing here on this live stream. And as we've done with the other elements, I'm just asking you to create some kind of ritual around the metal element that serves you, that you can tap into as you are integrating this clearing this week. Again, continue with your fire ritual, continue with your earth ritual, and add in a metal ritual. You may find that your ritual actually morphs into one ritual that now includes all three of the elements that we've covered. It doesn't have to be separate things for each one. As you move through this process, you may find some ritual that incorporates and includes all of those things, right? So, okay, let's dive in and do our metal clearing. All right, so I'm gonna tap into the collective of inner alchemy, testing into the metal element and finding out how many emotional installments we have to clear in the metal element. We've got 6, okay? All right, metal. I'm going to go through and identify the emotions first, and then we will dive into the clearing. So we have got shame. We have got contempt. We have got inability to let things go. Or holding on, hanging on. Issues with father figures. Finding meaning. And peace. Okay, so now we're gonna go back through one by one and break all of these down. How's everyone doing? Everyone good? Send me some love hearts. Let me know you're there. It's quite quiet. Hello? 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 There you are. Okay, good. All right, 3 hearts. I got 3 hearts out of you guys. All right, I'll take it. Thanks, Heather. Oh, here they come. Okay. Okay, here they all come. All right, so we're gonna, shame first is where we're going. This is in the large intestine, so you're gonna be clearing from the hand points here. This is large intestine 4. So this is where you're going to be clearing from. So we have shame, and the issue that is coming up around shame is, okay, so we're having issues finding inspiration. We respond to that by being deeply moved. And we're ultimately asking ourselves, how can I find inspiration and meaning? So the shame installment here is really interesting because what immediately came to me as I was reading these things off is that often as spiritual people or seekers of knowledge, right, we are ashamed of this metal element or this metal imbalance or this metal part of ourselves that is always seeking, right? It's like we are ashamed that it's never enough. We sometimes feel shame around the fact that like we're always seeking and always reaching and we never seem to reach a destination. And it can definitely like show up in a place of shame, right? I feel shame that I'm constantly seeking inspiration, right? That I'm constantly seeking meaning, that I'm constantly seeking deeper meaning. And there's a piece of this finding inspiration and meaning, finding inspiration that is and can be imbalanced. And this shows up for us when we're constantly seeking the next process, when we're constantly striving towards, annihilating ego and self. And so yes, one, we carry some internal shame around that. And I absolutely believe that that needs to be cleared. And I want you to just really hear that like balanced metal is a seeker. It is a seeker. It seeks wisdom. It seeks knowledge. It seeks to find meaning in life. But it does it from a healthy space instead of a space that is driven and motivated by obsession. So that feeling, that imbalanced response of being deeply moved by everything around us is pathology and is an imbalance. So it's not that we don't want to be deeply moved ever. It's that we don't want to be in a place where we are harboring some shame. And again, like this, guys, usually isn't something that you're carrying in your conscious mind. You're not like consciously, I feel shame around my need to constantly seek inspiration and meaning in my life, right? Now, some of you, if you maybe haven't stepped fully into purpose and you're in this state, you may be feeling the shame, right? But for those of us that have really stepped into purpose, this is something that's hidden quite deep. These layers are quite deep. So definitely clearing out that shame around finding inspiration, being overly deeply moved, and ultimately asking ourselves, how can I find inspiration and meaning? Okay. Have we cleared shame? Any saboteurs? Any deception? Okay, cool. Moving on to contempt. This is about approval and recognition. And our response to it is we show up as, or we try to portray ourselves as nonchalant. And ultimately, the question is, how can I connect to the world? So, contempt is in the large intestine. This is hand points again, large intestine 4. So here we feel contempt over not receiving approval or recognition. And our response to it is to act nonchalant, right? But ultimately we're asking ourselves, how can I connect to the world? If I'm not receiving approval and recognition for the things that I'm doing, how can I connect to the world? If I'm showing up from a place of contempt, how can I connect to the world? If my response is to be nonchalant, how can I connect to the world? Definition for contempt. yes, I will be happy to give you not just a definition, because I feel like definition is less important. I will give you the etymology of the word. So it's from the late 14th century. It meant open disregard or disobedience, an act of despising, scorn for what is mean, vile, or worthless. So it's like scorning someone, to slight, scorn, or despise. She who despises, contemptrix was Latin. In the 1700s, it was open disregard or disrespect for the rules, orders, or process of judicial authority. So open disregard or disobedience, and then that sort of like scorn, despising something or scorn. Okay. All right, so again, that was in large intestine 4. We successfully cleared contempt, any saboteurs, any deception. Okay, so now we're moving on to the inability to let things go, hanging on. This is definitely a metal thing. It can also be a wood thing, but it's slightly different. So, but this is like hanging on to stuff, like that desperation, right? This comes into play a lot. Grief is the primary emotion of metal, as you know. And so this is like, as metal CFs, when we're out of balance, we have a tendency to want to hang on to our grief. And a lot of people in the world, I think, are experiencing this right now. Like, this is that wanting to live in the misery, right? And in the inertia of grief and misery. So, okay, inability to let things go has to do with feeling inadequate in the world. We feel inadequate, so we hang on. And our response to it is it's the deeply moved again. Show up as deeply moved. And the question we're ultimately asking ourselves is, how can I find inspiration and meaning? And this one is large intestine 4, hand points. So, here we have, our inability to let things go or hanging on is motivated by our feelings of inadequacy. So we feel inadequate, so we hang on. And then again, we show up in this mask of being deeply moved. So it's how we, like this idea of, I'm deeply moved by so many things. Look at me, look how moved I am, right? Like, this is the thing that I talk about in the spiritual community all the time, right? Like, it's almost like this martyrdom. It's like, look how much I suffer, look how much I move, look how inspired I am. But it's a mask. So it's, in the first instance, it's that feeling of being deeply moved. It's a mask to hide the shame, right, that we feel around constantly seeking. In this situation, it's a mask to show that we actually, like, it's a mask to hide that we actually feel inadequate in the world. So we show up in this place of like, oh, I'm so moved. The wind blows and we're so moved. And it's not that there's anything wrong with being deeply moved, but in these instances, we're talking about using it as a mask, right? To actually cover what's actually going on and what's actually happening. So here we feel inadequate. And so we're hanging on to whatever the thing is that's no longer serving us, right? We have an inability to let go of that which is no longer serving us because we feel inadequate. And so we're grasping on to whatever we can hold on to under the guise of we're so deeply moved. But ultimately, like, all we're trying to do is find inspiration and meaning. Like, that's the part that in, you know, obviously we've got a theme happening here. We've already got it showing up in two of the first three. So how can I find inspiration and meaning in my life? Can hanging on be around addiction too? Absolutely, absolutely. And addiction is really, really prominent in the wood element, and metal controls wood. So, you know, yeah, addiction can absolutely be a thing. Okay, have we cleared inability to let things go? Any saboteurs, any deception? Now we're moving on to issues with father figures. And so I want to say, like, as we move into this, before I go in and break it down, this is going to resonate deeply with some of you. I already know it's going to resonate with me. Some of you may have great relationships with your fathers, but you have unbalanced or unhealthy relationships with the archetype of father, or you have unbalanced or unhealthy relationships with the patriarchy. So make sure you're thinking outside the box as we're moving through this issue with father figures. Some of you, you already are like, I already know what it is, right? So issues with father figures has to do with approval and recognition. And our response is to act nonchalant. It doesn't bother me, right? And ultimately, we're asking ourselves, what do I need to be complete? Issues with father figures also affect our internal masculine, right? It also affects our ability to father ourselves. So internal father figures is large intestine. So large intestine 4, these hand points are going to be sore, okay? Oh, it's interesting because, you know, the large intestine is like separating the pure from the impure. And obviously that's what we're doing here in clearing. Issues with father figures having to do with approval and recognition. What do we always want from our father figures, right? And so when we're not getting it, instead of showing that we care, showing that we're hurt, we're like, I'm gonna act nonchalant, it doesn't bother me, but ultimately it's like, what do I need to be complete? Well, what we need to be complete is to father ourselves, right? To step into that role of fathering for ourselves. Can it be over masculine and diminishing our feminine? I think it's more to do with how our masculine shows up for us, and how our masculine, like, and in the way of nurturing, in the way of fathering, right? So the patriarchy's the whole premise behind the patriarchy is fathering the world, right? I know what's best for the world. The father knows best, right? So that's the whole premise behind the patriarchy. So if we look at this as an internal construct, it's how do I show up in my fathering of myself? I am in my masculine so much of the time, right? Like, I'm very at home in my masculine, I'm very comfortable in my masculine, but I wasn't, until I went through my father quantum clear, good at fathering myself, right? Like, I just didn't have any concept of that. I also didn't have a dad at home, so I wasn't given a role model of how to father myself or how to care for myself in that way. And so, you know, as I step more into that space of, like, not just nurturing myself from a feminine perspective, but nurturing myself from a masculine perspective, like fathering myself. So I think that's the difference between, like, showing up in masculine energy and showing up in feminine energy, and showing up in mothering energy and showing up in fathering energy. It's the nurturing part. It's the nurturing piece, right? So I would love for some of you at home to answer this question for Shannon. How does one father themselves? I think everyone fathers themselves differently, depending upon what they need, how they grew up, who their role models were. For me, because I grew up with this sense of abandonment from my father, it means that I constantly and continually show up for myself. I didn't have like the structure that a father would provide. I didn't have a provider, a father figure who was a provider. So for me, fathering myself is, you know, being a financial provider, providing for myself. It's holding boundaries, holding loving boundaries with myself. You know, a lot of this is like masculine stuff as well, but for me, it's like, it really resonates because it comes from a place of nurturing. It comes from a place of growth. It comes from a place of, encouraging my development and, you know, helping me reach my infinite potential from a place of, solid structure and boundaries and nurturing. But it's not nurturing in the like, oh, let me care for you while you're sick. It's like, let me care for you always. Let me provide for you always. Like, I will be here. I will be the banks of the river that will hold you, you know, that type of thing. So I would love, I haven't seen anybody else post, but like, how would some of the others of you on this call father yourself? Okay, so large intestine 4, again, clearing out issues with father figures. Have we successfully cleared issues with father figures, any saboteurs, any deception? Cool. All right, so moving on to finding meaning. Okay, this has to do with feeling complete. And our response is to overworking and achieving. And ultimately, our question is, what will give my life meaning? So we're trying to find meaning. We're asking what will give my life meaning. It has to do with us feeling complete. We're trying to find meaning so that we'll feel complete. But how it shows up when we're imbalanced is by we're overworking and achieving. Always trying to be the best at everything, right? Like overworking, overachieving, because we're trying to figure out what will give our life meaning. Yeah, that's great, Beth. Taking care of finances, make investments, retirement, amazing. More structure and discipline, and being a provider for myself. Yeah, I love that. Okay, so finding meaning is in the lung. Finally, we're gonna give your hands a break. So we're gonna go to, we're gonna do the lung spirit point for this one. So those of you that are spiral practitioners, you're used to going here, right? The emotion is finding meaning. You're gonna go here. You normally go here. You're gonna come down just a little bit, right about to the corner of your armpit, and you're gonna come in, like about that much. So it's here. It's just down from where, as a spiral prac, you were taught, if you were taught, the lung point it was. So this is the lung spirit point. So we're gonna clear this finding meaning using the lung spirit point. Yeah, you may father yourself through playfulness. If that's how your father showed up for you, absolutely. Okay, we successfully cleared finding meaning, any saboteurs, any deception. Okay, cool, so we're moving on to peace now. Peace is also in the lung, but we're gonna do lung 9 this time on the right side. So this is gonna be, it's where the artery pulses underneath on the outside of the wrist. So just there underneath the crease, like there on the side where the artery pulses is where this point is. This is lung 9. Okay, and so we've got peace, and the issue is we're seeking. So we're seeking, and our seeking is creating a space where we don't have peace. and our response to it is self-gratification. And the question we're ultimately asking ourselves is, how can I connect with the world? So disturbance in peace from seeking leads us to self-gratification, activities of self-gratification. But ultimately, we're just asking ourselves, how can I connect to the world? So this is like, you know, when there's a disturbance, when we're disturbed, when we're not in peace, what do? We go out and we try to fix it, right? And it's through self-gratifying behaviors. We eat, we drink, anything to mask that feeling of not having peace. It's on the outside of the thumb. It's where the artery pulses. Right side I said. Spending money, sex, all the things. It's right side for lung 9. Okay, we successfully cleared peace, any saboteurs, any deception. Growth. Perfect. Okay, let's look at the themes that we've got here. So we definitely have a, how can I connect to the world? Got 2, how can I connect to the world? So that is one of the statements you want to journal on. And in that we've got, you know, this idea of like contempt because we're not receiving approval and recognition, and so we're showing up nonchalantly. And the nonchalant thing is actually a theme as well. We've got it twice in here, and so I do want you guys to look at that. It's like, where in your life are you wearing that mask of nonchalantness to cover up how you're really feeling about something? So that's one question I want you to ask yourself. Where are you wearing a mask of nonchalantness to cover up how you're really feeling? So that's one thing. And then, how can I connect to the world? That's just something I want you to journal and riff on. Like, how is that showing up for you in your life? Like that feeling of wanting to connect to the world. And, you know, as a result of that, as a result of feeling like that's not happening or you're not able to connect, are you showing up in that nonchalant way? Are you participating in self-gratifying behaviors? So those are the 2 things sort of associated with how can I connect to the world. Are you engaging in behaviors of self-gratification? Are you wearing a mask of nonchalantness? Okay. And then we have 2 that are around how can I find inspiration and meaning. This is like such the typical metal thing, right? So how can I find inspiration and meaning? How can I find inspiration and meaning? And both of these have installments around that showing up as deeply moved, right? Like overly moved, deeply moved, wearing that mask of being deeply moved, to hide shame, to hide feelings of inadequacy, okay? So how can I find inspiration and meaning? Journaling on that. And then the other 2 that we have that are, you know, they were just kind of there, but you might want to journal on them if you feel called to. What do I need to be complete? That was in relation to the issues with father figures. Again, where we were showing up nonchalantly. And then what will give my life meaning? What will give my life meaning? And how can I find what will give my life meaning without overworking, right? So Mallory will also put those in the group for you, but those are your marching orders as you go to integrate this clear. How long will it take for the energy, emotions, and conditions from all of this clearing to release through the collective? This one's a 7-day one, okay? So we've got 7 days here. Make sure that you're doing your metal ritual and check in with me. Let me know how the clearing's going. If you have questions about any of the journaling prompts, definitely put them in the chat. I think that's it. So have an amazing day, morning, evening, wherever you are as you're watching this live stream or you're watching the replay. Those of you that weren't here live, we missed you, and I will see you guys in the chat.